Hi, everybody. Yay, it's not so hot this week. Okay, so full disclosure, it wouldn't have been as hot last week either had I figured out how to open my windows, which I thought I did, but I didn't. So now that I figured that out, the windows are open, and I got a second fan, and things are just hunky dory in here. Um, However, because the windows are open, it's been driving Freddie a little bit nuts because there's all these new sounds now that he wasn't hearing before. So if he like starts freaking out, I may have to go deal with that. But right now he's chewing his thing down there, so I think we're good for now. So I hope you enjoyed last week's book. I hope I see you later today, or I've already seen you. And somebody brought up a topic in last week's discussion on Who Stole Halloween. That I'm like, ooh, we can do this book next to kind of tie into that. So I will forewarn you, it is not a particularly happy book, but it is fascinating just from the viewpoint of what people are capable of, what people can do. Um, and it's a true story. So we're going back to nonfiction for those people who enjoy that sort of thing. Um, so I'm going to read the preface, which is kind of like an introduction, and then the first chapter. And should you want to read the rest of it, you know where to find it. We're going to do definitely one more after this, I think. Yeah. Mm, Maybe. I'm not sure. This may or may not be the last one. I will let you know next week in the in Google Classroom. Ready? Um, and I'm still looking for um, a way maybe that we could do something over the summer. So I'm probably going to put a poll out to all of you asking if you would be interested in continuing this over the summer um, in the same classroom, same deal. I make a video, you read it or don't, and then we discuss. I may go do it every 2 weeks, just if we have some longer books. I'm not sure yet, so just stay tuned for that. Once I have a whole bunch of planning and stuff for the summer that I need to do. So once I figure that out, I will let you know. So without further ado, Freddie, what you doing? Stay out here, bud. I don't trust him if I can't see him. Yeah, I don't trust you if I can't see you. Yeah, I know. You want to lay down and listen to a story? Want to lay down and listen to a story? Can you lay down for me? Can you lay down for me? Go lay down. Go lay down. Yeah, good boy. Yeah, so we'll see him at the end. Um, he's trying to decide between does he want to chew on the cheese or does he want to chew on the toothbrush? Yeah. Okay. So now, without further ado, let's get started on this week's book, which is, no pun intended, which is The Absolutely True Tale of Disaster in Salem. And look, it's got a shiny silver medal. Means they did a good job writing this. And you're not going to get to see this while I'm reading, but there's pictures. Yay. Um, by Rosalyn Schanzer. Okay. All right. So let's get started. Preface. Witches! For centuries, these horrid creatures have invaded the nightmares of superstitious souls around the world. Who was to blame for causing a terrible, unexplained pain or an untimely death? What if your farm animals fell into a fit and began to dance and roar, or your milk jug shattered before your eyes for no reason? or your child was born deformed. A wicked witch must have been casting spells to harm the innocent or to settle a score. In European lore, witches consorted with spirits shaped like animals, vicious cats perhaps, or wild black hogs or birds. Far more sinister was the idea that witches were the enemies of God and the agents of Satan himself. But the most frightening thing of all was this: anyone could be a witch. Your own mother or father, your best friend, your tiny baby brother, or even your dog. And you might never know who was in league with the devil until it was too late. Chapter 1: Wherein the Stage is Set. Across the wide ocean they came, European emigrants looking for a new beginning on American shores. Many settled in New England, and among these were the Puritans, an English religious sect hoping to live a simple, God-fearing life and to create a heaven on earth. Even before their first ship set sail for the port of Salem, Massachusetts, in 1629, they had bucked the British tide for years in an effort. Oh, Freddie's got a fox. Freddie's got a fox. So I will try and do tug of war and read at the same time. They had bucked the British tide for years in an effort to purify their church, banishing every trace of pomp and circumstance, from priestly vestments and music to incense and colorful stained glass windows. Yet, with all their fine intentions, the voyagers had brought along a stowaway from their former home, a terrifying, ancient idea fated to wreak havoc in their new land. For the Puritans believed in the existence of two entirely different worlds. The first was the natural world of human beings and everything else we can see or touch or feel. But rooted deep within the Puritans' souls, like some strange invasive weed, lurked their belief in a second world, an invisible world, swarming with shadowy apparitions and unearthly phantoms of the air. To be sure, many spirits in this hidden world were wondrous and benevolent. These winged seraphs were the angels of the Lord, who wished only to protect the living or offer advice in times of trouble. But the invisible world was perilous too, boiling over with fire and brimstone and legions of evil, malicious creatures. So great was their power that they dared to do battle with God's own angels, and the leader of them all was the devil, a fallen angel himself. Oh, Freddie. The devil's malice was most fierce and most cunning when he waged his war upon God's children. To that end, he and his brutes, each one a fiend to the bone, formed a vicious army determined to destroy everything that was good in the natural world. Among Satan's soldiers were foul-smelling souls of the dead, horrid imps of darkness, cleverly disguised as animals, and a ghastly knot of demonic fallen angels who denounced the word of God. And perhaps worst of all were the devil's witches, for they could hide in the land of mortals to cast their spells upon the innocent. The Puritans were terrified by this invisible world, whose hideous creatures were every bit as real to them as their own families, neighbors, and farm animals. Puritan ministers preached that it was God Almighty who controlled these two worlds, and he was fearsome, vengeful, and easy to displease. Though pious children of the Lord might be rewarded for good behavior, any sinners who did not obey his laws would be punished along with their entire communities. And here's a surprise. Because God was all powerful, even the devil and the demons and the witches were under his control. Satan was truly an instrument of the Lord, for it was God himself who loosened the devil's chains and allowed this horrid creature to mete out God's punishments. Freddie. Freddie, come. Freddie, come. Come on. There we go. Hi. Okay. The Puritans trusted that God did everything for a reason, so they took note of the things happening all around them in the belief that he was sending them signs. And as more and more Puritans spread outward from Salem town, Massachusetts, to build new towns and farms on Indian territory in Maine and New Hampshire, they discovered a multitude of horrifying signs in America. If only anyone could figure out what they meant. Freddie. Freddie! Come on, stay out here, please. Sit. Good boy. Lay down. Here are some of the signs that they saw. Earthquakes, droughts, fires, and a plague of flies ravaged the land. Fierce hurricanes swept the seas, obliterating every ship in their path. Blazing comets and shooting stars streaked across the sky. Eclipses blocked out the sun, and the colorful lights of the aurora borealis danced and swirled through the night. There was disease aplenty. Deadly smallpox epidemics devastated entire populations, while malaria, yellow fever, measles, and other maladies tormented young and old alike. 2 fearsome wars between the English and the Indians raged for 14 years all throughout New England, destroying farms and villages on both sides and causing terrified Puritans to flee back to the relative safety of Salem town and a nearby farming community called Salem Village. To the Puritans, every one of these signs seemed to signal God's wrath. And God's wrath was exactly what was troubling Reverend Samuel Parris, the Puritan minister of Little Salem Village. It was early January 1692, and every member of the Parris household was shivering with cold. Each night the water inside the house would turn to solid ice as a shrieking wind howled on, whistling through the cracks in their walls and floorboards. Reverend Parris was extremely upset, and there were 3 reasons why. First was the firewood promised in his contract with the Salem Village Church. There was hardly any left. Second was his promised pay. There wasn't any. A church committee, Freddie, gentle. A church committee of wealthy merchants and landowners in Salem Village disapproved of Reverend Parris and had just voted down a tax that was supposed to provide the money. Parris was enraged and began making fiery sermons, thundering from his pulpit that these wicked and reprobate men had joined forces with the devil to destroy the Puritan religion and all that it stood for. Here are but 2 parties in the world, Parris proclaimed, the Lamb and his followers, and the Dragon and his followers. Everyone is on one side or the other. A little black and white thinking for you there. But the third reason was by far the worst of all. Something was terribly wrong with the Reverend's 9-year-old daughter, Betty, and his orphaned 11-year-old niece, Abigail Williams. Normally, the Parris household would have been a hive of activity filled with 8 hard-working people. Besides Parris, who was forever sitting beneath his map of the world to write yet another terrifying sermon, there was his good-hearted but somewhat frail wife, Elizabeth. There were the couple's 3 children, Thomas, age 10, Betty, and little Susanna, 4 years old. And there was Parris's niece, Abigail. In addition, Parris owned 2 slaves. Remember, this is 1692. that was what happened back then. Tituba, an Arawak Indian woman who was kidnapped by a slave runner in South America when she was a young child, and her husband, John Indian, who had been married to Tituba for the past 3 years. Tituba had helped raise the pair's children ever since they were babies. If all had been well during this unusually harsh winter, Betty and Abigail would have spent most of their time working together indoors. There was not much playtime in Salem Village. Children were expected to help out the same as adults from the time they were about 4 or 5 years old. So when there were chores to do, and there were always chores to do, except on Sunday when everyone was in church, the two girls might have knit some warm socks, boiled laundry in their enormous fireplace, swept ashes off the floor, ladled out porridge for breakfast, or helped make a wild venison pie and some sweet pudding for lunch in their big iron cooking pot. When all this work was done, they could card some wool or linen. Card means to smooth it out so that they can make it in yarn. Twist its fibers into yarn on a wooden spindle. Mend torn breeches or even upholster a chair. Of course, they would spend some time studying the Bible and saying their prayers. And if they ever took a break, they might sip some pear or apple cider from large pewter cups. But that's not what happened one freezing day in January 1692. Not at all. For as winter's sleet and snow heaped higher and higher outside their door, Betty and Abigail began to twitch and choke and contort their bodies into strange, abnormal shapes, crouch beneath the furniture, and speak in words that made no sense. So, what do you think is going on with these two girls? Something's happening, but we don't know what. And we won't know what until you access this book on Epic and read it, and then we can discuss it next week. So, I think that's everything for now. Like I said, I will probably put out a poll sometime in the near future, and we may or may not do another one. I haven't decided yet. But you should definitely read this book because if you have time and if you have interest, but I'm pretty sure you will encounter this event somewhere in your social studies class in the next few years. I think they do it in 7th grade. So if you're looking for a little bit of background to go into that discussion, this would be a great book to read. And like I said, there's pictures. So, and the pictures are very cool. So that's that. I'm going to go find out what Freddie's up to because he's gotten awfully quiet. Hey, Freddie, you want to come say goodbye? Freddie! Hi. Yeah, come on up. Come on up. Hi. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Say hi. Say hi to the people. Say hi to the people. Say hi. Yay. Sorry. I guess I gotta be over there. I don't know. There's something in the room that apparently he wants. So, but yeah, so we will, I will hopefully see you next week and have an excellent weekend. I think it's supposed to be nice. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. I will see you later. Bye.